Okay, now we'll create a graph of the data from the first experiment. I'm in the data file, the data table that I had created for this experiment. The first thing that I want to do is to highlight the cells that have the data from this experiment. I do not want to highlight the header of this table, but only the cells that contain the numbers that have the values of my independent and dependent variable. Once I've highlighted all of those cells, I go up to the Insert tab on the top menu. I come over to the drop-down menu for scatter plots, and I want to select the type of scatter plot that has smooth lines and markers. So I'm going to click that option. Notice that a graph appears in the worksheet. I can grab the edges of this graph and move it wherever I'd like, and it probably makes sense to keep it here beside my data table. I'm going to maybe make this just a little bit larger, so I'm going to drag the corner out. Okay, so this is the raw graph. Now I need to do a little bit of work to make it usable. So first of all, this thing that says Series 1, the legend over on the far right, I don't need because I only have one set of data in this graph. So I'm going to click that legend and hit the delete key to get rid of it. Now I need to put titles on my axes and also give units of measure for the information here. So notice that while the graph is highlighted, I have a new menu section in the top menu bar. It's called Chart Tools. And if I go to the Layout tab on the Chart Tools menu, I have an option to put axis titles. So I'm going to click this menu, and first I'm going to put a horizontal axis title below the axis. So I click this option, and I'm going to just start typing my name. So on the x-axis here, I have the mass 1, and after I type the title of this axis, I want to put the units of measure. So that mass is measured in kilograms. Once I've typed the title and units that I want, I click Enter, and it puts it here next to my x-axis. Now I'm going to go back to the Chart Tools Layout menu, back to Axis Titles, but this time I want to put a title on the vertical axis, and I like the option that does a rotated title. So again, I'll just type that title. This is the gravitational force, and the units are newtons. Once I've typed that, I can click Enter, and it puts that here next to my y-axis. And finally, I need an overall title for this graph. So I go back to Chart Tools Layout, then I go to the option for Chart Title, and I'm going to choose to put a title above the chart. I'll type that name. This is Gravitational Force versus Mass 1. And because this experiment has several variables, I'm going to make my constants clear in this chart title. And I'm going to say that this is the gravitational force versus mass 1 for mass 2 equals 25 kilograms and distance equals 4 meters. So I'm spelling out my constants in this title just to make it very clear. Okay, and then as I'm looking at this, there's one other thing that might make this graph easier to read. I would like to see vertical bars on this graph to make it easy with my data points. So if I go to the x-axis and choose any one of these values on the x-axis and put my cursor over it and click the right mouse button, I have the option to add major grid lines, and I'm going to choose that option. So that just makes the background of my graph a grid and makes it a little easier for me to read the values of these data points. Okay, and that is, I now have a good graph for this data. So I'm going to go and save my file so that I won't lose that.